As international concern grows over the Rohingyas fleeing Myanmar, there's now evidence that Al-Qaeda is attempting to forge links with the Muslim minority. Members of Al-Qaeda have called for support for Rohingya Muslims in the face of the brutal military crackdown, as Anne Barker reports.
The exodus of Rohingya Muslims from majority Buddhist Rakhine State began after a series of attacks by Rohingya militants on Myanmar security forces last month. Myanmar's military responded with brutal force against the wider Rohingya population, and in the 3 weeks since, nearly 400,000 Rohingyas have fled Myanmar for neighbouring Bangladesh. The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres says that's nearly a third of the Rohingya population.
Grievances that have been left to fester for decades have now escalated beyond Myanmar's borders, destabilising the region. The humanitarian situation is catastrophic.
Video released overnight shows the continuing disaster unfolding in Rakhine State. Human rights monitors say the footage shows Myanmar's security forces burning homes and villages and forcing Rohingyas to flee. The military denies it's targeting civilians, but refugees in Bangladesh who've seen the footage online have vouched for its authenticity.
In our area in Mangdo, all the houses, including mine, were set on fire by the military and the Rakhine. I saw the fires with my own eyes.
The Rakhine were killing people. Police were shooting. They set fire to our homes. They only killed Muslims. They even killed people as they tried to escape.
The UN has condemned Myanmar's crackdown as a form of ethnic cleansing, but Myanmar says it's dealing with Islamic insurgents, namely the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army, which carried out the attacks last month. And there is evidence to suggest that jihadist groups are trying to gain a foothold in Myanmar's Muslim community. Al-Qaeda has called on Muslims around the world to send weapons and military support to Rohingyas in Myanmar, and it's warned Myanmar will face punishment for its crimes against the Rohingyas. One Australian expert on the region, ANU Associate Professor Greg Feely, says Al-Qaeda's move isn't surprising, but it could well see a weapons flow to Rohingyas inside Myanmar.
These arms don't necessarily have to come through terrorist networks per se. They can come through broader Islamist networks. There are a number of reasonably militant groups in Bangladesh, and so they may well have ways of getting weapons to the Rohingya groups. One of the things we've seen in the last month is some fight back from some of those displaced Rohingyas, attacks on police posts, military posts in Rakhine State. But most of the time they have been with either sharp instruments, swords, machetes, things like that. They have very few weapons, the Rohingya attackers, and so we could see a considerable escalation in the nature of the conflict.
The UN says it condemns the militants' attacks, but Myanmar's brutal response could amount to crimes against humanity. Aung San Suu Kyi, Myanmar's democracy leader, faces mounting criticism for her silence over the military crackdown. She's now cancelled an appearance before the UN Security Council next week, but officials confirm she'll address her nation in the coming days.
Anne Barker reporting.